Hey everybody, Dr. Marty here. We are talking about inequalities, and we've learned how to solve inequalities, how to graph them, and today we're going to talk about interval notation, which is just another way to represent the solution set to an inequality, the solution set to an inequality. Okay, so there's some important symbols to note. Okay, we know that less than looks like this, right? Greater than looks like this. We know that when we graph, less than or greater than is going to be an open dot, an open circle. I'll draw one up here just to remind you. Okay. Um, Now, with interval notation, if we have less than or greater than, we're going to use a parentheses, right? So those are the kind of the rounded ends for to represent that interval notation. And you'll see that in a second. Okay. Then if we have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, less than or equal to greater than or equal to, we know that this is what the actual symbols look like. We use a closed dot on a graph, right? Closed dot on a graph. And we're going to use brackets. So these square grouping symbols, okay? Two other things you need to know. One is sometimes you'll use the infinity symbol, and that's when something goes until quote unquote infinity. And then you also might use this, looks like a U, and that represents a union, okay? So let's try to figure out what this looks like in practice. Sorry, I'm just trying to make it so it's clear and you can see. Okay, so we have a problem here where it's already solved. Okay, this just says x is greater than 12. So what's our solution set? Well, our solution set is just x greater than 12. We didn't have to do any solving there, right? What does the graph look like? Well, we can draw a graph. We can put 12 in. It's greater than, so that means it's an open circle, right? Open dot. Greater than goes to the right. So it looks like that. Okay. Now let's learn about interval notation. Now with an interval notation, okay, if it is less than or greater than, right, it's x is greater than 12, we're going to use parentheses, okay? So because the 12 is the lowest value, right, everything is greater than 12, on the left we're going to have that parentheses, and we're going to write 12. We're going to write 12. Then we write a comma. And then what is 12 going to? Well, if we look here, there's no upper bound, right? Any number greater than 12 is going to satisfy this inequality, right? Any number greater than 12. So it really goes on to infinity. It goes to infinity. So we're going to use this infinity symbol. We're going to write our infinity in here. Now, one little kind of quirky note. Anytime you have an infinity, you're going to use a parenthesis. Okay, so x greater than 12, our graph looks like this. We know that. Open circle at 12 going to the right. Interval notation looks like parentheses, which means greater than 12, going to infinity as the upper bound, and then an end of parentheses. All right, this is going to make a little bit more sense as we get going and get through this. So let's look at our second example. We've got negative 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 11. Let's solve this for x, okay? So first thing we're going to do is subtract 3 on this side. That means we've got to do it on this side. Negative 2x greater than or equal to 8. Now we need to divide by negative 2. Guess what we are going to do? I hope somebody is yelling out, flip the sign. Because every time we divide or multiply by a negative with inequalities, we have to flip the sign. So we're going to get x is less than or equal to 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So our solution set, x less than or equal to negative 4. Great, easy enough. We can graph this, right? Negative 4, it's less than or equal to, so it's going to be a filled in circle, a solid circle, and it's less than, so it goes to the left. Now, how do we represent this with interval notation? Okay, well, we know that the upper bound is negative 4, right? We also know it's less than or equal to. If we look up here, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, is a bracket in interval notation. So our upper bound is going to be a bracket on the right side, and it's going to be negative 4. Okay? Now, where does this go? Is there a lower bound? No. This goes to negative infinity. Now, it sounds weird, but negative infinity means all of the numbers going to less than a given number. So it's going to negative infinity, and we said every time we have infinity, convention says we use a parentheses. So solution set, x is less than or equal to negative 4, because we flipped the sign. Graph, closed circle on negative 4 going to the left. Our interval notation is parentheses negative infinity, comma, -4. That means all numbers less than or equal to, because we have a bracket on the right, -4. Let's look at our third example. 2 times the quantity 3x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 20. This is a multi-stepper. We're going to distribute first. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times 4 is 8. So 6x plus 8 greater than or equal to 20. We subtract 8 here, subtract 8 here. We get 6x greater than or equal to 12. Divide by 6. Don't have to flip any signs. X is greater than or equal to 2. So make sure you can see that. X greater than or equal to 2. Make our number line. Boom, boom. We've got 2. Closed circle because it's greater than or equal to, and we go to the right. Now, how are we going to graph this? Well, 2 is the lower boundary, right? This is the least number it can be. It's greater than or equal to, so we look up here, greater than or equal to is a bracket. Greater than or equal to 2. And where does it go? Well, it goes to infinity. Remember, infinity, we always use a parenthesis. So interval notation, bracket 2, comma, infinity, parentheses. Okay? Let's go on to our second page. We've got 2 pages of notes today because we have a couple more interesting examples. Okay? The first one is -8 is less than, pardon my reach, x, which is less than or equal to 2. Okay? Now, there's nothing to solve here, right? We've got a solved solution set. So we can just go ahead and write that in. -8 less than x less than or equal to 2. Is that okay? Sorry about the focus today. All right, so what does our graph look like? Ooh, interesting, right? We got -8 down here. We got +2 here. We know x is greater than 8, -8, greater than. That's an open circle. We know it's less than or equal to 2. That means it's a closed circle. And so it's going to be greater than -8, less than 2. That means we're going to shade in all of this in between, right? Now, how are we going to represent this? Well, our lower bound is -8, and it's greater than. Not greater than or equal to, but greater than. So that means it's a parenthesis. -8, comma. Upper bound is 2. It's less than or equal to, so that means it's a bracket. Do you see how for interval notation, we're now getting a parenthesis for greater than, a bracket for less than or equal to? Here's where it gets even more interesting. We've got x is less than -2, or x is greater than or equal to 5. We can just rewrite that for our solution set. And remember, we might see some compound inequalities where this would be true. Okay? When we graph this, we've got -2 over here. We've got 5 up here. X is less than -2. It's an open circle and one of these guys, arrows. X is greater than or equal to 5. It's a closed circle and one of these arrows. Everybody with me on that? Now, how do we represent this using our interval notation? Well, this is where we have to come back and we have to remember that this symbol, an upside down U, right, is a union. That means you're combining 2 different sets. Okay? So let's do this one, and then we're going to have a union with this one. Essentially how it's going to work is we're going to have this representing that in interval notation. We're going to union it with this. So -2 goes to -infinity. Remember, infinity or negative infinity always has a parenthesis. It is a less than, so it's going to be a parenthesis up top. We're going to write our union. Okay, that's where the union comes in. And then up top, we've got 5 is greater than or equal to, or x is greater than or equal to 5. I'm sorry about that. Bracket 5, comma, positive infinity, parentheses. So we get parenthesis, negative infinity, comma, -2, and a parentheses, union, 5, the bracket, comma, infinity. So what does this mean? It means that it's all of the numbers from -2 going down to negative infinity, going to the left, and then it's all of the numbers, including 5, going up to positive infinity, and they're union together. And that makes sense if we look at our graph. Okay, so that is how to use interval notation to represent inequalities.